can't believe I'm saying this, but Fromsoftware on a random Tuesday has just decided to release an Elden Ring DLC story trailer. This is a full 3-minute CGI trailer that is filled to the brim with absolutely incredible information. There are so many hidden details in this trailer. I know how excited I am, so I'm not going to hold you any longer. Let's get straight into it. As the trailer starts, we are greeted to a new character, or at least this character's voice, talking about Miquella the Kind. This is in fact a follower of Miquella. There's multiple reasons why this is the case, and we will get into that later in the video. I want to try and keep this chronological as to not confuse anyone. I'm recording this really soon after the DLC trailer has dropped, and I can imagine people are going to assume that the person who's reaching into this cocoon-like thing is actually Miquella, but that couldn't be further than the truth. After we see this cocoon-like thing, we see this woman going up these stairs of flesh, and then holding up something that looks like, from the colour palette and the orbs it flies off, is the Elden Ring. Now, considering the golden hair, the clothing worn, and the fact that it then talks about grace of gold being born, it's very likely that this is actually Marika. Now, if we look at the gauntlets which are reaching into this cocoon, it's the very same that are on this Marika-esque person. Something I'd like to mention also post-recording, I've just realised that this bracelet also looks like a snake curling around. So that would also imply that Marika had some connection to snakes as well, just like her son, Mesmer, which is massive lore-wise. We know that Miquella went into his cocoon to become a full-fledged god. Now, we also know that Marika is a god. Now, that begs the question, was she at one point not a god? And if that is the case, how on earth did she become a god? Well, I believe that she went into a cocoon. I think this is her cocoon. Now, we know that emperyans are the ones to become the next god. I propose that a long time ago, Marika was an emperyan before she cocooned and became a full-fledged god. This would also explain how Miquella knew that if he went into this cocoon, he could transform into a full-fledged god. We know at the beginning of the trailer that this character says that Miquella the Kind tells of this story. A story detailing the beginning, a story of seduction and betrayal that birthed the grace of gold. Miquella evidently knows about this time period, and if he knows about that, then he knows about this cocoon at the beginning of this trailer. I believe he was copying his mother, and he knows something that we don't yet. There was something incredible said in the beginning of this trailer. It talks about a story of seduction and betrayal, while talking about Marika and the beginning of the grace of gold. Now, this is really, really amazing for multiple reasons. We are never really told much about the beginning of the Golden Order, except for the fact that it had to do with an elden beast crashing into the ground. That's all we know until today. The story of gold starts with seduction and betrayal. Now, who was responsible for this? Well, I think the only candidate is Marika herself. This seems even more likely since this line was talked about while Marika was in view. Now, this could mean multiple things, but I'm going to tell you my opinion. I implore you to come to your own conclusions. I believe there's only one real candidate towards this seduction. I think it was the guy in the DLC painting from the original gameplay trailer. Now, I know in previous videos I have said that I thought that this guy was Marika's dad. But considering all the information we have now, I think there's a possibility that isn't the case anymore. We know the old crusty guy from the trailer is in fact related to gold in some aspects, having some sort of golden bones being ripped out of him. Some people in one of the last videos even said that it looked like a sapling, which I agree. I don't think it's actually a sapling, but the imagery of that is definitely there, linking back to the Erdtree, which Marika is linked to. Not to mention all the gold tints, which is like the grace of gold. Now, to the actual depths of what this seduction might be, we simply cannot know. We don't have enough information towards that. But out of everyone that it could possibly be, I think this old crusty bag of bones is definitely the biggest candidate for Marika's seduction. There's so much information here that we haven't even talked about the place that Marika is actually located in. This Rykard-ass looking place is like the blasphemous sword times 10, and then if they just copy and pasted it everywhere. It's brutal, gory, and really fucking weird, but also really fucking cool. Now, even this holds so many secrets. this pile of corpses goes up like a doorway. Now, because of Fromsoftware being absolute geniuses, they've tinted the top of this doorway dark, so we physically can't see. I remember in the first DLC trailer, there was actually a part in the painting where if you lightened the image, you could actually see a new part of the picture. Now, I don't have the capabilities to do that, but I do think that if you could do that, you would see something up there, whether that be going off into the sky, or it's simply closing off at the top like a true doorway. The DLC then has this to say.
And so too was Shadow born.
I have no idea if this has flown under the radar or not, but when it says, and too was Shadow born, it doesn't talk like it's talking about a land. It sounds like it's addressing a person. And just who so happens to be in frame? Marika the Eternal. Now, this depiction of Marika isn't switching around between Marika and Radhn like we normally see with Marika. Just why is that the case? Well, I personally believe this is pre-Radhn, and this is further reinforced when it looks at Marika and it says, and too was Shadow born. Now, I think this shadow is Radhn. I believe that upon the birth of Grace of Gold, Radhn was born. Kind of like an Athena mind baby, only it's Marika's other half. The Elden Stars incantation, which depicts the arrival of the Elden Beast long ago, is actually located in the Deep-root depths. Something you might be wondering is, Gecko, why is this important? Well, in the trailer, it seems to me that Marika is holding the Elden Ring. And where does the Elden Ring come from? Well, it comes from the Elden Beast. Now, if this incantation is correct, and my interpretation of the fact that the Deep-root depths is actually where the Elden Beast first crashed, that would make where Marika is in the trailer the Deep-root depths. But how does that make any sense? Now, I have got a theory that would explain this, but I've got to warn you all, I'm going to go insano style on the crazy thermometer. I'm going to make the moist meter become the dry meter with the craziness that is this theory. So please, bear with me. What if, a long, long, long bloody time ago, the lands between and the Shadow Realm were one in the same? But then this affair happened, the affair of gold, and Grace was born. And this new land was split in half from the old land. Now this land, born of gold, shone light everywhere, and whenever there's light, there's a shadow. I believe that the Shadow Realm is that shadow. I believe that Marika took a part of this old world and made it into her home, that being the lands between. I believe that the Shadow Realm is the left behind pieces that she left behind after taking what we now know as the lands between. I guess you could kind of think of this like a pizza. Now normally there's about 10 pieces in a pizza. If you take away 5, think of that as the Grace. Now you've got 5 left in the box. I think that might be the Land of Shadows. Now we know there are places outside the lands between. So hell, let's just say 3 pieces of the Land of Shadows. You've got 2 left, that being, in my opinion, the other lands we hear about outside the lands between. Now, we can't possibly know 100% until the DLC comes out. But personally, this is the theory I'm most confident in. If you're not, then that's perfectly okay. In my opinion, the most important thing that could happen right now is us all having vastly different theories. Because if we all throw shit at the wall, eventually one piece of stinky turd is going to stick to the wall and we'll get the answers we seek. But that's only going to happen if we throw around theories that we haven't heard before. Now I'm looking at the record time and it's 8 minutes and 30 seconds. I have talked 8 minutes and 30 seconds about 37 fucking seconds of a trailer that is 3 minutes long. What is this trailer Fromsoftware? What have you done with my life? There is too much information here, Fromsoftware. I'm having a brain aneurysm when my brains are scattered all over the wall, Miyazaki, after my brain has physically combusted. I am blaming you and I am preparing the lawsuit as we speak. The next few minutes after this of the trailer is just pure dopamine rush of war. We see Mesmer. Now, Mesmer's been quite overlooked so far in this video because we've literally been talking about the first 37 seconds of this video. Mesmer is seen in this trailer. Now, from the timeline we can see this sort of Marika creating the Elden Ring here, and then this war seems to happen really close together. That fact completely disproves the theory that's been going around for a long time that Mesmer is the third triplet in the Miquella and Melania trio. That completely disproves that. Considering that's disproven, we now need to think of who on earth Mesmer is in connection to Marika. I still think that he's a child of Marika. Only, I actually believe that Mesmer is the byproduct of this affair. It's my theory that maybe, just maybe, Mesmer is the child of Marika and whoever she seducted. In my opinion, it's the only option to the parentage of Mesmer. It wouldn't make sense for Marika and Radhn to just shack up straight away and Mesmer to be born. Not to mention it's going to take a long time for Mesmer to gain the battle prowess he's evidently showing, considering he's got Mesmer's flame and it talks about Mesmer's tyranny. I think that would happen a lot later on if Marika and Radhn were the parents of Mesmer. And if the timeline was a bit different and this whole war happened a long time after the Elden Ring was created, then I could totally see that being the case, but I don't think it is. I truly believe that Mesmer is a byproduct of this seduction that Marika performed onto perhaps the guy, the crusty old guy from the painting and the trailer. Also, just to recap in case you forgot, in the original DLC trailer, Mesmer goes, "Mother, would thou's lordship someone so bereft of light?" Considering this, it very much seems to be referencing Marika, so that's another reason to believe that Marika is the mother of Mesmer. Something really interesting that also comes about has something to do with a little bit of hair. Now, Mesmer has red hair, Marika has golden hair. Now, how on earth does that make any sense? Well, that would make you think that maybe the father would have to have red hair. Now, considering this, we've always just assumed that it would be Radhn, but what if this is not the case? Radhn is born of Marika, so that makes Marika and Radhgn's genes one in the same. So that would lead me to assume that whoever the father is of Mesmer was in some relation to Marika. Now, I know what you're thinking. George R.R. Martin, you silly little goose. Why are you using the incest card again? Because, dude, you use incest in every story. I honestly think he's got a bit of a fetish for it, if I'm being honest. But regardless of that, I think you might be able to see where I'm going with this. Recently I made a video talking about my theory that perhaps the guy in the painting was Marika's dad. Now, I might have said at the beginning of the video that, oh, this is disproven, but I don't actually think that's the case. I think that maybe this is Marika's dad, but also the very same person she seduced. Now, I don't know what kind of dad you have to be to just shack up with your daughter, but this guy in the painting seems to be that guy. Now, a theory that's gone around for a really long time is that the reason why Miquella and Melania have these curses is due to the incest. Now, if this is also the case with Mesmer, the fact that he is an incest child born of a father and a daughter, then that would explain all the weird things about him. Now, I've thought for a really long time that the snakes are actually intrinsic to Mesmer and they aren't some weird byproduct of some ritual. I think he might have been born with them. And if this is true about the incest kind of curse, maybe this is what happened. Maybe his curse was the snakes. There's something really interesting that pops up at 1 minute and 15 seconds. We see someone lying down, kneeling in this crater of rubble. Now, that isn't what's interesting, it's what's on their head. Now, this head mask thing looks almost identical to the one that Tanith wears. Now, we know that Tanith is a dancer from a foreign land. We also see in the DLC trailer a lot of dancing style moves. So, that makes you wonder, just maybe, the foreign land we hear about in Tanith's mask item is in fact the Land of Shadows. Now, we know that Rykard actually met Tanith in this foreign land. Now, if this foreign land is actually the Shadow Realm, that would mean that Rykard has access to the Shadow Realm, which is insane. That would mean that the Shadow Realms aren't completely cut off from the lands between. The real question now is, how on earth does Rykard get there? This is just a theory and there's no real evidence, but at the beginning of the trailer we see tons of piles of body, which is really reminiscent to what we see in Rykard's boss arena and on his sword. Maybe it has something to do with mass sacrifice. I don't know. That's just a theory, but we really can't know yet, at least until the DLC. The other big part of this part of the trailer that really piqued my interest was the fact that we now have a confirmation that Mesmer and these wicker giants are on the same side. They seem to be the sort of foot soldiers of Mesmer, and that's what gets us to our next point. I think that Mesmer was sent to this Shadowland by his mother, Marika, to clean out and cleanse all the sort of remnants of the bygone age. Personally, that's the best conclusion I can come to as to why Mesmer was here and why he was waging war and plunging this land into an unsung battle of fire. But like always, I am really curious to hear your theories on this matter. The other big thing in this part of the trailer is we actually see the massive puppet lion from the other trailer. Now, like Mesmer and the Wicker Giants, we can now place this guy on a side. We can place this guy firmly on the side against Mesmer, considering we actually see Mesmer and this lion going toe to toe, going nuts to butts, battling each other. The next part of the trailer is focused solely on Miquella. Now we get even more confirmation here that Miquella came to this land of his own accord. It talks about how he stripped himself of gold, how it stripped himself of his strength, and he came to this land of shadows. Now, it seems to me like this character's sort of implying that Miquella came here to save this land. Maybe I'm looking too much into it, but that's what it seems like to me personally. And then we get the absolute bombshell of the confirmation that Miquella is St Trina. We quite literally see St Trina flowing in this sort of dreamlike state, flowing backwards, with this character talking about Miquella divesting himself of his fate. Now, why is this St Trina? Well, for starters, all depictions of St Trina have their eyes covered. The eyes are covered here by some sort of cloth. There's also the fact that there's little lavender coloured petals flowing around which come about when you use sleep incantations and sorceries. There's also the fact that it's just purple tinted all over, which is St Trina's colour. It all points towards this being St Trina, and I'm honestly shocked they confirmed St Trina is Miquella, but I am not complaining at all. This character then proceeds to drop another bombshell by saying that they followed Miquella here. It gets even crazier when it then pans to a massive group of them asking if we will join them. Now, I originally thought all these characters that popped up in the original trailer were the original inhabitants of this Shadow Realm, but it seems like they are actually Miquella's followers that have followed him here. So that gives an identity to all those people that are in that original trailer when it's sort of panning through them. I'm a bit disappointed they aren't actually the townsfolk and people living inside of this land, but I also think it's really cool because now it seems like we've got a whole new covenant and they seem to be giving us an option to join, which means good bloody loot. I also want to quickly mention everything in the lands between talks about a crucible age before the Erdtree. Now, if the Shadow Realm and the lands between were one in the same, then that would mean that everything pre-Erdtree is also part of this old age. That would include Placidus and everything to do with that. There's so many interesting points you can go with this, and I really hope we get some sort of insight into the history of Elden Ring's world in the DLC. Though to be honest, I am really doubtful considering how long ago in Elden Ring's world this pre-age was. Sadly everyone, that was the end of the video. That was a really long video, but also a really fun video to make. There was so much stuff in this trailer that honestly blew my mind away. I am a massive Fromsoftware fan, as you can probably already tell, so this was just like the most amazing video I could possibly ever make. The best thing, I came back from doing my studying and there was just this, oh, hey, by the way, there's a trailer coming up in 3 hours, and I was just blown the fuck away, and I'm so glad they released it. Although I'm a bit blown away as well that it was on a Tuesday of all days. But yeah, anyway, I'm not going to ramble anymore because I will just sit here for the next 10 minutes and ramble. So I really do hope you have a great rest of your day, and yeah, may you find your worth in the waking world. Goodbye everyone.